Hello, everyone. Hope you're having a wonderful day. I am excited to be here with you and one of my friends, Mark David Pullen. How are you doing today, Mark?
I'm doing well, thank you. How are you today?
I am fabulous. It is hot, and I have my iced tea. Iced tea is my crutch during the summer, because if it wasn't, I would drink an absurd amount of Diet Coke.
Okay.
Iced tea is my safe haven, and I drive absurdly far to get good iced tea too.
Really? What's absurdly far?
Like a half hour each way.
Oh, that's not too bad. I would have
Like that's
expected
like an hour out of my
absurd,
day to get like a
absurdly
dollar.
far, but I drive that for a good cup of coffee. I don't know if a half hour is absurdly far.
Okay. I mean, objectively, I've had people like hardcore judge me for like my hour little round trip errand to go get like 2 containers of iced tea.
No judgment here for that.
Well, much appreciated. So Mark, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, and what you do and what you're about?
Sure. My name is Mark David Pullen. I am a full-time building maintenance worker, full-time father, full-time husband, and aspiring full-time author.
That's a lot of full-time jobs, Mark.
Yes, it is. Yep.
Eh,
And some of those hats never come off. Some of like the
Yeah.
building maintenance hat, I can hang that one up at 3:30, but the father and husband, no, those hats seem to work their way on and off the head
Yeah.
all throughout the day.
Yeah. And even when you're at work, you're still a husband and father.
Yes, absolutely. Especially when your wife is a teacher in the district you work in and your kids go to school in the district you work in. So,
Oh yeah.
yeah.
That'll do it. I always say, so me and my husband, we don't have kids yet. And when people talk to me about it, I'm like, listen, I I like kids. I adore my nephew and soon to be niece. But once you're a parent, you're
It
never not a
changes.
parent ever again.
You're absolutely
And
right.
I am
And
not ready for that.
it's funny because my mother always told us, she's like, you need to sleep good now. She's like, because when you become a parent, like that phone could ring at 2 in the morning and you have to answer it when you're a parent. And I remember we were in the hospital getting ready for my son to be born, and my mom was like, this is the last good night's sleep you're ever gonna get. She's like, and it's going to be a rough night. So you need to savor this. And she was 100%
Oh
right. I
my
don't think I've
gosh.
slept good in 5 years, 6 years
Mom
now.
just dropping hardcore truths right there. But like
Yes,
I'm like, even
absolutely.
after like once they go away for like college or like
It
on their
never
own,
stops.
you're still a parent.
Yes.
You're never not a parent ever again. So that's my
Nope.
go-to line is like I'm like good until I'm ready to be never not a parent again.
Exactly.
So you
It's,
always wear that parent hat.
yeah, I get it. I understand 100%.
So tell me a little bit about your job.
Well, like I said, I'm a full-time building maintenance worker for a local school district, and that's pretty much all the excitement there is. I go in and move snow when it snows out. I go in and cut the grass when the grass needs to be cut, and then everything in between.
Gotcha. Do you work on a team of people?
I do. I'm one of six maintenance guys.
Okay, for the whole district.
Yes.
Is that like too many people or too few people?
Uh I think we're good. I think
Okay.
we've got three buildings we cover. So
Okay.
I think we're pretty good.
That's not bad.
Yeah.
That's not too shabby.
Yeah,
Sometimes I'm
no.
like, it's either like one way or the other, but like
Yeah.
hearing something is properly staffed is always like a good thing.
Yeah, I feel like we're good. I really do. Everybody has their own thing that they're good at, so we're a pretty good team. We're more of a
Yeah.
well-oiled machine, I'd say.
And you also mentioned snow, which is like a foreign concept to me where I'm just like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, it snows at school sometimes in
Yeah.
other places.
And that's one of those things. All the teachers laugh at us on their way out the door. Ha ha, see you not tomorrow because we'll be out when it's snowing. It's like, yeah, we'll be here. But
Still be shoveling that snow.
yep,
At
that's
least I
it.
hope you have more than a shovel. I hope
Oh,
it's more than
absolutely. Absolutely. Thank God. Knock on wood, we have more than shovels. And you know what? I thought we were gonna get away pretty good this year, but the last 3 weeks I think we were in for more snow removal than we had been the whole entire winter thus far.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh. That's
We
crazy.
thought we had skated by, and then all of a sudden here we are, every weekend
Is
moving
it
snow.
is there still snow on the
Oh
ground out
no,
there?
no, no, no. We're good.
Okay.
We're good. Thank God.
Okay.
No.
I
No.
know, I know like up by us in the mountains, like there is still open, I think. Like it's
Yeah.
still snowing up there.
We've had snow this late in the year, but this year, thankfully not. No,
Oh, thank
we're
goodness.
good.
Wow,
We're good now.
we're really stereotypical in talking about the weather. Um, I always laugh when that happens. It's like, yeah, we actually talk about the weather, which is like really common for like people who like know I'm in Phoenix, because then they're like, "Oh, it's really hot there, isn't it?" I'm like, "Yes, like it's hot." Like,
Correct, but that's the good seasons, the hot ones. Everybody likes the
uh,
hot seasons.
uh,
No?
not 120
Oh,
degrees. Like
oh,
that's yeah. It's funny though, because we make national news and I'll have like my dad calling me and be like, "Hey, I saw Phoenix is on the news. Are you okay?" I'm like, "Yes." Like I also have air conditioning and cold water.
right.
Like we're good
Yeah,
over
we're good,
here.
Dad. Thank
Apparently
you.
our heat waves make national news. So what does a day in the life look like? A day, a week, kind of how you move throughout your day and spend time with the family and do the husband duties and all of that good stuff.
Well, the day at work, really, the beautiful part about my job is that it's different every day. Like, there's no way to settle into routine because you could think you're cruising into an easy day and then the phone rings and all of a sudden you're up to your elbows and could be anything. You never know. So it's 8 hours of that. And then I clock out at 3:30. My wife gets done about 3:15. So we have the luxury. We live 7 minutes from where we work. So we
Mm,
get to carpool. We carpool every day. We meet at the truck. We go pick up the kids, and that's when the evening starts. That's when real life for me starts, I should
yeah,
say. It's pick up the kids, it's dinner. How was your day? Working on homework, you know, family stuff, dad stuff. Some nights I got to cut the grass. Some nights things have to get done, but we try to do as much as we can as a family.
mm,
That's really very important to me is incorporating as much as I can with them.
yeah.
So,
And
and
and and how do you kind of fit in, like what is your involvement with your church community look like? Are you guys involved in any way? Is your Do you do it on your own? What's that look like for you?
sure. We just became new members 2 weeks ago to a new church that we have been going to for a little over a year, so we're excited about
Nice.
that.
Yeah.
Um, great kids program Sunday mornings, super excited about that. And it's we're looking forward to what's ahead of for us with that. That's
Yeah.
it's always exciting to find a place where you can put your roots down and call home, and we're very excited for that.
Yeah. Yeah. And what does kind of like, is it just Sunday for you guys, or is it throughout the week,
Well,
or what
for
have
right
you?
now, it's just Sunday. We're about 50 minutes from church.
Okay.
So, by the time we get out of work and get things situated, we're pretty well in
Yeah.
the hole for during the week stuff. But
Gotcha.
um eventually we would like for them to be a little more flexibility there, and that's kind of a goal we're working towards. But for right now, yeah, it's just kind of
Right.
Sunday mornings.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about like what your one-on-one time looks like with God, and how do you find the time with everything that you have going on to make sure that you spend that intentional time with God?
Sure. One of the things that I like to do is throughout my day, even though it can get crazy, a lot of people's jobs can get crazy. I like to seek the quiet moments. There are pauses, there's breaks in the day where you can kind of shift into autopilot and you can keep going and charging ahead, but your body's doing the work, your brain is allowed to wander. And I really, it's in those quiet moments that God speaks to me and that we can have that time to just kind of sit and, be inspired.
Mm.
He can really speak things into your heart and into your mind in those moments. And that's one of the biggest things that I try to do is just I seek after those quiet moments.
Yeah. I heard something one time and I was like it just has resonated with me so much. And it says like, um, if you work with your hands, rest with your mind. If you work with your mind, rest with your hands.
Absolutely.
And that has been like super like life-giving, but like also like freeing from like guilt and shame for me specifically because I'm like on my computer all day. I work a desk job. Like when I get to my weekend and when I like have, a Sabbath or I'm resting and spending time kind of refilling my tank with God and all that good stuff, I want to go outside and I want to work in my garden. Like I
Mhm.
want to draw and I want to paint and things like that where, it's not restful in kind of the
Right.
typical sense, but I work with my brain, so I rest with my hands.
Absolutely.
Do you feel like that's true for you and like how you guys either find your weekly days of rest or if you guys observe Sabbath or anything like that?
Oh, absolutely. I think we do a good job of that, of trying to take the hat off when we can, and you know, letting life, I guess, kind of fall into place around us. Just kind of take the hat off, take that deep breath, and say, okay, it's time to downshift for the day, time to downshift and just kind of move forward at a much slower, easier pace.
Mm,
Absolutely.
yeah. And you talked a little bit kind of like before we hit record about um kind of the stereotypes around blue collar workers and faith and God and like what that looks like and all that good stuff. Can you talk about that a little bit more?
Sure. So, I try to work with dignity. I work in an environment where you can't always be loud and robust about your faith. So I try to be diligent and I try to work, with dignity. I would like to, even if I can't talk about it, I would like people to be able to see Christ through my actions. I would like for them to look at me and know there's something different. And I would like for them to be able to, maybe if we have a second, they can quietly approach me and ask, and then we can talk. But, not everybody has the ability to talk openly, in their
Mm,
workplace or be,
yeah.
you know, vibrant with their faith. And you know what? So in those environments, there's still ways to exhibit the love of Christ, and you can do that through your actions. And you know what? They'll know us by our love. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, and what ways has that kind of like played out in your life and working with like what unique challenges do people like in your industry or other type of I don't want to say blue collar but I'm using your words blue
Yeah,
collar
absolutely.
workers like what unique because I'm foreign to kind of that environment what unique issues do you guys kind of face when it comes to practicing your faith and walking it out with God and what does that look like what does the solution look like if anything at all.
There's days when you're stuck in a truck with somebody, and you can these guys are my family 40 hours a week.
Yeah.
That's the way I look at it. Like I see them
Mm,
pretty much, if you factor in time, I see them more than I see my family. So you know what? It's important to cultivate relationships with these people you work with. It's important to, nurture those relationships because you see them frequently,
yeah.
5 days a week. Let's face it, if you don't work overtime 5 days a week, 8 hours a day,
Right.
and they're people too, they have things going on in their lives that, they need help with, they need to talk to. And why not be that person? If you have the opportunity and you can be that ear, maybe you can shed light onto what they're dealing with. Maybe you can't, maybe you can just be a listening ear. But that's the way I look at it, is that they are my family for 40 hours a week. So I try to
Mm,
cultivate those relationships. I try to nurture those relationships because you
mm.
know what? I don't mind being that guy. I don't mind being the guy that people can come to and people can talk to.
Yeah.
I think that's it's an important role, and I think every workplace has that person. So I
Mm.
don't mind if I am that person, and I could be totally wrong. If I am that person, I don't
Right.
mind being that guy.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think too it like opens up the opportunity for maybe like not in the moment, when you're telling Jesus to people, but I think what it does is it like puts your foot in the door so
Absolutely.
when they have a situation that they might need support in, whether it
Mhm.
through prayer or uh discipleship or whatever it is, that they know that like you're a safe person to go to in that.
Absolutely. And I've had instances where hey, you're a church guy, this is going on. Can you just, I don't want to pray with you, but can you say a prayer? And say, yes, absolutely. And then to be able to explain to them that, what, prayer and God are not necessarily a get out of jail free card,
Right.
just because I'm willing to pray for you, like the response you get may not be the one you want.
Yeah.
And then to be able to explain to them, a little more about, how it works, and that, sometimes the answer we get may not be the one we want, but it might be the one we needed.
Mm.
And that's not always they're not always an easy pill to swallow for some people,
Right.
but I've absolutely had those instances where things like that have happened.
Yeah. Yeah, and so, like, in what ways do you, like, let people know you're a church guy? Because I know some people who are like, "Oh, I have, like, a cross in my cubicle." Okay, you don't have a cubicle. Um, or I'm assuming you don't have a cubicle if you're, working around in your truck and on the different, campuses and whatnot. So, what does that look like for you?
Well, I try to, I have that quiet faith, but when the opportunity does present itself, the guys that I work with, they know that I go to church, they know that I'm a Christian, they know that I believe in God. Um, because although we're not allowed necessarily, we can't be open about it, but if you broach the subject like, hey, you started this, I didn't, so I can wedge my
Right.
foot in that door too. So, the guys I work with, they know because I've told them, I'm like, look,
Yeah.
we'll absolutely, if there's anything we can do, we'll be in prayer for you. And they're like, why? And it's like, well, because I believe that prayer is a wonderful thing,
Yeah.
and that's how they know. It's that although I do try to live that quiet faith at work, I'm also, if you open the door, I'm going to let you know.
I love that too because, sometimes it's just like you crack the door open a little bit. I like swung it open, threw it
Exactly.
open, both
Yep.
doors. Um and when you say like you're kind of not allowed to, I think I get what you mean, but are you speaking from like in terms of like a managerial position and like these people who you work with are kind of like under you as like as your employees, or is it more so like a work culture, or is it
Uh,
like an actual
yeah,
rule?
no, it's not a rule. It's
Okay.
more like work culture, I would say, and as Christians, we're not the most popular to begin with,
Right.
if that makes any sense.
Oh yeah.
Um, there's a lot of things that are tolerated, I believe,
Mm,
today, and being a Christian isn't one of them.
right.
So, um, really, it's just kind of a work culture thing, I believe.
Gotcha, gotcha, gotcha. Yeah, because I mean, and you don't have to divulge this, but I know especially like working in public school systems, that's also gets on really shaky territory. And I'm sure your wife
Absolutely.
has, things to speak to in her interaction with like the kids on the campus and whatnot, of where it gets into like some real sticky situations in terms of like navigating it from a Christian perspective.
Absolutely. And she's the same way. She would tell you that, what, she will, she has the cross on her Bible. She has the teacher's prayer on her Bible,
Right.
or on her desk. I'm sorry, on her desk. And she can't, if a child asks like, hey, what's up with that? She can talk about it. But if they don't, she can't just say like, hey, see this? You need to be looking into this. Like, it's just one of those,
Right.
if they broach the subject, she can go into a little bit of detail, but she
Yeah.
can't,
Yeah.
it's just
And I
one of those
mean,
things, I guess.
also if the situation was reversed in terms of like, if teacher was a Satanist or something, I wouldn't want
Right.
them to be pushing that on my kid. Not saying that Christian is the equivalent to Satanist, but in terms of belief systems, if someone had a different belief system that I might not want my kids to expose to, I wouldn't want them to
Absolutely.
freely give that information to my kids if I had kids, I'd assume. Um, but on the other side of that too, I think there's also like the reason why I ask about like the managerial stuff is because like sometimes that can also influence your kind of interactions with not subordinates, but people who report up to you.
Right.
Um
Absolutely.
I just got back from a conference in San Diego with the gal who the week prior to the conference, she was no longer my direct report. She got moved laterally to me. And so when we went to San Diego, I was like, no, we're going to have fun. Like, I don't have to be manager Paige. Like, I get to be like coworker Paige, and we get to
Right.
have fun like that. And so that's why I was asking that question, because I'm like, yeah, there is like a little bit of um complication, I guess, when you have like a team of people reporting up to you and you are held to not your own standards, but like also like company and like
Yes.
organizational standards as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, when it comes to like practicing your faith, like what is one of the biggest struggles that you have?
My biggest struggle, to be quite honest, is putting God in a box.
Mm,
You know, I work 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. The last thing I want to do, but that I find myself doing more often than not, is putting God in that box and then checking him off after church on Sunday. Like, okay, you know,
mm,
crossing him off like he's one more thing off the list. Okay, okay, check
yeah.
the box. We did it. And I believe that would be my biggest struggle. Something
Yeah.
I'm definitely working on.
Yeah, and are you talking more in terms of just like your interaction with him? Because like I get like church on Sunday and then like check off, but also like when people talk about like putting God in a box, it's like limiting beliefs about God and like what he is able and capable of doing in your life.
Yeah, try not to think of it like that because I can look at what he's done for me and I can see how he's guided my footsteps to where I am.
Yeah,
Um, I would have to say mainly for the church thing on
yeah,
Sunday, making it, and does it, are there days where my prayers at night aren't as strong as they could be? Are they a little bit faster? Absolutely.
right.
Um, but like I said, that's something that I'm trying to work on is that not putting him in that box, because like I said, I have seen where I've been, where what I've come from, like where he's guided my footsteps, and he deserves better than that.
Mm, yeah, yeah, for sure. And I also think too, like it it limits God's, a doesn't limit God, but it limits us to be able to be used by God in other
Absolutely.
areas of our life.
Absolutely.
And I think too, like when we just kind of use it as like a checklist item, it becomes obligatory rather than a
Absolutely.
relationship.
Absolutely. And you know what? It's days like that when the 50-minute ride to church seems to take 100 minutes. And,
Yeah.
then the 45-minute sermon takes 90 minutes. And it's
Yeah.
those days. And it's usually before the day is over that I'm, kicking myself, going like, okay, you know why that was, right? And it was
Right.
because, my up and down wasn't right,
Yeah.
and I find that when your up and down is right, your vertical is right, your horizontal, everything else falls into place.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think too, like one of the things that like I really want to keep true on this podcast is the fact, and it's a hard question to ask because I'm like putting people on blast, like, hey, like where do you suck in life? Because we all have those areas. I wouldn't
Absolutely.
put it I'm not going to tell you that you suck, Mark, but we
No,
all
it's
have
okay.
those. We all fall short and we all have weaknesses. And so I always just like to throw that one in there because I feel like it is so important to talk about because, when I was recording with another couple this week, I asked him, like, what's your daily life look like and with your walk with God? And he's like, do you want the ideal answer or do you want the real answer? I'm like, no, I want
Uh-oh.
the real answer because I
Uh-oh.
have an ideal answer. My ideal
Right.
answer is, yeah, I totally wake up every single morning. I, read scripture. I have my quiet time and I do that for an hour and a half. And then I go to the gym, right? Like
Right.
that does not
Yeah.
happen before I sign into work every day. The real reason is like I listen to Christian music in my car and I pray to God before bed on a daily basis. Majority of the time that's what it looks like. And so I feel like when we're able to kind of humanize, the Jesus experience, I guess
Absolutely.
it,
I
it
get
feels
it.
it feels more approachable too.
Yes, absolutely.
And so, when you're going on that drive and, you're going to church and sometimes, and like, I mean, if you want to be like not legalistic about it, but if like in my mind, if I was you, I'd be like, okay, 50 minutes there, 50 minutes back, plus like
Oh,
a 45-minute sermon, plus like 20-minute worship. Okay, that's like 3-4 hours right there. I
and
spent 4 hours with God this
that
week.
is right. And then see, but then there's the parent side too. So you're doing that math as a parent too with a 6-year-old and a 4-year-old. Like, okay, they're gonna be buckled in for 50 minutes. We're gonna get out. They have to sit quietly in church for 45. Then when we leave, they have to be buckled back in for 50 minutes. So if we get them home, they're just gonna be complete and total animals by the time we get there because of all that pent up energy. So,
That's where you have to find like I don't know if they have them out there, but like a trampoline park that's like
oh yeah,
that's
absolutely.
nearby the church. And
And
then
just let them
after
go.
church, you just let them go. And then on the way home, they're quiet little angels in the back seat.
We'll have to look for something like that.
At least that's what I would do.
That's too funny.
Um, is there something that like you do or that you see other people do in your life, or even like, I don't know, on TV, podcasts, books, whatever, that helps people manage their work and faith? Like, and what would that be?
That's a good one. I think to be totally honest, I think my mom does a pretty good job.
Mm.
You
And
know,
telling you the truth and
well, yes, and telling me the truth. And you know what? She works for the district where I work. She's not necessarily as reserved as I am.
Mm.
Whereas I wait for that door to creak open a good bit before I kick my foot in. My mom, like, you just got to turn the handle, and my mom's got the knob on the other side.
She's kicking down the door.
She's got the knob on the other side, and she's ripping the door open. Um, you know, I'm not as seasoned as she is, but that's one of those things that boldness for Christ that definitely
Mm.
I would encourage people to seek after. You know what?
Yeah.
That's one thing that you can be 100% sure in is Christ. Like, be a little bold in that. Let's have a little boldness in our faith. Like,
Yeah. And what do you think are like some of the, I mean, there's no right answer and I don't know the answer either, but what do you think some of the reasons are why Christians are maybe more reserved in that boldness?
you know what? And it's like I said earlier, we're not the world's most favorite people right now.
Right.
You know, um, and we're really cool people. I don't understand why, but um, I don't necessarily know whether it's fear of ridicule or stepping on toes, but that's I think we need to get better about that. I think we need to be more bold and less worried about what the opinions are, because they don't care about ours. Not saying that that's the right thing.
Right.
You don't care about us, so we don't care about you. But you know what? If they have the privilege to be bold about their opinions, we need to be bold about ours as well.
Yeah.
I think that can be a two-way street.
Yeah. The pastor at my church, he calls it a throat punch. And it's saying the right thing at the right time in the right way.
Absolutely.
Where that's where the boldness comes out. If like I'm going to tell you, a truth, and it's like going to come out. It's like, I'm not going to be mean about it. I'm not going to say it in the worst way possible, but I'm still going to say the truth, and I'm going to say it to you when you need to hear it, in the way you need to hear it.
Right. And I believe that there's also the go along with that is, speaking the truth in love, if it offends you if I speak the truth in love and it still offends you, that's kind of a you problem because
Yeah,
I've come at you with my hands up in a way
right.
saying like, hey, look here, brother or sister, like this is what I see, this is how I can help. And if you still get offended, I think that's a you problem at that point.
Yeah. Yeah, because there's something stirring, that there's something when there's offense taken, there's something stirring internally that is two opposing forces. It's not
Absolutely.
just one opposing force. There's something pushing back against it. So yeah, that's completely true and completely right. And I think too, when it comes to, speaking the truth in love, I think that a lot of the times, you see it a lot now where people are like, you just need to love, you just need to love. I'm like, okay, if you're walking across a bridge and you're about to fall off, I'm going to tell you that you're about to fall off no matter how much you like walking across that bridge.
Right.
And that's what love is to me. And I think that a lot of the times we think it's like, no, you want to walk across the bridge, go ahead. I'm going to let you do what you want to do.
Right.
So walk across the bridge. When really the love part is stopping them. And I always like to say,
Absolutely.
like, if you always have, I don't know if it's a saying or something, but it's like, if you have the best secret of the world in the world, like, the best thing in the world, don't you want to tell the entire world about it? You don't want to keep it
Right.
to yourself.
Absolutely. 100%.
Yeah, that's awesome. And yeah, I think too, like, if other people can be bold, we can be bold as well. And I think there's a lot of fear, especially in, like, I don't even know if you want to call it cancel culture, or like even the fact that like everyone's phones are like around nowadays. Like,
Yes.
the
Absolutely.
fact that we feel like we can always be put on blast, and that, like, getting fired from your job is like really, it's very close. Like, I
Yeah.
feel like it's
Absolutely.
closer to us now than it has ever been, especially as
Absolutely.
Christians, because one thing taken out of context
That's all it
and you're
takes.
done.
And and then you think like, okay, well, all right, it's just me, but it's not just you. What happens to your family, things like that. Like you run that risk these days because
Yeah.
nothing you say is secret anymore. Nothing, you can't say anything in private anymore. Everything, if
Yeah.
people dig deep enough or dig hard enough, is be public knowledge.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'll probably pull the clip and put it somewhere in this episode if I can find it. But there's like a sheriff's office out here, and he like does speed traps, and like that's like what he does. And they film it and they make like a kind of, reality TV show out of it, just on Facebook every week for the Pinal County sheriffs. Um and there was this guy, and he like approached a car, and the kid in the car was just like giving him lip and like sassing back and everything. And then the guy said, if you don't give me your ID, then I'm gonna have to pull you out of this car, because failure to identify is an arrestable offense. And so the kid whips out his cell phone and starts recording it. And then he goes, "Can you say that for me one more time?" And he says, "Yep." And then, like, just gave the spiel again. "I need your identification." And he goes, "Okay, yeah, here it is." And like pulls it out and hands it to him. And afterwards, the sheriff was like, "Did you see that?" Like, the interaction up to the point where he started recording was so like nasty on the kid's side. And then once he started recording, he became the perfect person all over again.
Well, it's so funny because before I went to work for the school, I worked for a local municipality and I was building maintenance for the sheriff's department. So I got to know a lot of the guys, and I was there when they were being fitted for their body cams.
Mm,
And um, one of the gentlemen who I cultivated a good relationship with, a good friend of mine now, I would say, He's since retired, but I remember he was telling me that he rolled up on a vehicle one night and he got to the window to ask for the license and registration, and they had the camera out already. They had their phone out, and he waved and pointed at his and said, "Now you wave to mine because you're on camera too." And he was like, it was shocking how quickly the phone went down at that
Yeah.
point. But
Yeah, but anyways, I'll have to find that clip because it is really funny, but all that to say, we're in this world where we're scared to step out in boldness, in so much the fact, like you mentioned it once, one, we could be hated. People could not like us. Um, I always joke, I come from a PR and communications background. I always joke that Christians need a really good PR campaign because you are 100% right. Most people don't like us
Mhm.
for whatever reason. And on the other side, we're scared that kind of that vitriol towards us is going to turn against us and kind of threaten us in a way that is either taking things out of context or, things said at the right time or at the wrong time in the wrong way, or even so much so where um where we are all sinners. We will continue to sin. For
Absolutely.
example, if you have a moment of anger and that is what is decided to be, pulled out of the situation versus something else.
Absolutely.
I feel like those are all risks that we run not only in our everyday life, but especially in our workplace.
Absolutely. 100%.
So, what what is the like spiritual discipline that is most difficult to kind of apply to your life? You talked a little bit about like church. I feel like that's like a logistics problem. But like something that uniquely applies to you in working 8-hour day, 40-day week, or sorry, 40-hour day. Oh my gosh. 40-hour week. Working 5 times. Oh my gosh. Working a 40-hour week. Let's just leave it
Right,
at
I
that.
got it.
You get what I'm saying. In working that, like what is a discipline that you think like many other people in your situation would also kind of face?
I would definitely have to say starting the day with devotions.
Mm,
You know, my feet hit the ground. I would not quite running in the morning, but I'd like to think I have a decent slept in my step. I haven't
yeah.
slept in 6 years. I'm a dad, but I mean, and that's it. And so my day starts, and then immediately after that, it's the pitter patter of little feet, and it's
Yeah.
okay. Mom's up and she's packing lunches. I'm up, we're getting kids ready. We're getting showered. We're getting clean. Like, and we've got, you know, 45 minutes before we have to be out the door to get the youngest to pre-K. So, it's definitely the devotions because it doesn't really matter what time I get up, what time we get up, because it seems that once we're up, it's not much longer after that,
Mm,
the day has started because the kids hear us up, they're up, and then the day has just started 15 minutes earlier.
yeah.
So it would definitely be starting my day with devotions,
Yeah.
hands down.
Yeah. And I think too, like, I know there's like it doesn't matter when you get that time with God, but I think there's something especially unique about having it in the morning.
Mhm.
Not only does it like in terms of pr- not only does it stretch that discipline in you in terms of getting in scripture, communing with God, but also it helps you set your brain and your heart on the right trajectory for the
Absolutely.
day.
It starts your day. Like
Yeah.
it starts your day. Absolutely. I agree with that 100%. There's I've done them in the morning and I've done them at night, and there's a difference between going to bed on it versus
Mm,
waking up with it. And waking up with it, um, it's exactly that. You're getting your head and your heart right together first thing in the morning,
mm,
and you might still have a cruddy day, but you started it right. You
yeah.
know, you started it with your head and your heart going in the right direction, and you know that's that, you know.
Yeah.
I agree 100%.
I feel that way about going to the gym, especially like I know some people love to work out in the evenings. I do not, because
No.
guess what? If it gets to evening and I haven't worked out, I'm not gonna work out.
Exactly. Exactly.
And so that also is like another scapegoat for me of like, if I didn't spend my time with God in the morning first thing. And then it's also like there's like the, you can almost hyper spiritualize it of like, oh, like you're putting God first. There's nothing else that matters. Nothing else but comes before him. Yes, that is still all true. But there's also the fact of like, hey, if you don't do it, you're
Yeah.
probably not going to. If your
Right.
personality is anything like mine.
Absolutely. I agree. I do. I totally understand that. I
Because
do.
like a little kiddo might need to like bonked his head and needs to go get stitches, God
Right.
forbid. But like you
Absolutely.
don't know what's gonna happen the rest of the day. So just like start it off with some Jesus.
Exactly. Yes. Yes.
Awesome, Mark. Well, this has been such an amazing conversation. I always like to finish off our episodes with one thing that listeners who are listening, because that's what listeners do, one thing that they can do to implement a faith building discipline or practice into their life this week, today, tomorrow, anything that they might be able to do to help them kind of grow their faith, move closer to God, and make that boldness a little bit easier.
Sure. And it's, I think I said it already, just seek those quiet moments. There are
Mm.
plenty of times throughout the day. I'm fairly certain everybody has those moments just where they can go on autopilot and then just everything else melts out around them and you can have that quiet one-on-one time with God, and for me in particular, I can tell you that those moments they occur more often than not at work. There's plenty of times where, if my day requires me to be on the mower, I start on the mower at 7:30 in the morning. My brain's on autopilot all day. I know where I'm going. I know what I'm doing. So my mind is free to wander. So why not wander in that direction?
Mm.
Wander and hold hands with God.
Oh,
That's what I would say. Seek those
oh,
quiet moments.
I love that. I love that, Mark. Thank you so much for joining us. Where can people find you and learn more about you or your book? All that
Sure.
exciting stuff.
You can find obviously through my website, theoasisking.com has a little reach out section, so you can contact me via email. You can find me on social media. My Instagram is and my Pinterest are Mark David Pullen, and on Facebook I am at the Real Oasis King.
Awesome. I'm so excited. And all of those links will be down in the show notes. Thank you so much, Mark. And we'll catch you guys on the next episode.
Thanks so much.
Thanks for joining us. If you liked what you were listening to, make sure you subscribe and hit those 5 stars, and we'll catch you on the next episode.